Okay, we are going to go ahead and get started right on time. So welcome to today's webinar titled How to Create Your Brand's Signature Experience. You are going to be hearing from the DiJulius Group's Customer Experience Consultant, Cal DiJulius. Just some housekeeping things before we get started. There are two different ways that you'll be able to communicate with us throughout our time together today. One being the chat feature. So if you have any questions in regards to follow-up or what's next or technical questions, I'll be monitoring the chat the entire time, and I will be there to assist you throughout our webinar. And then Cal will be taking live questions at the end of his presentation. So if you would like to ask him a question, please use the Q&A feature on the bottom of your Zoom screen. Just so you all know as well, you will be receiving a follow-up email from us that will not only include a copy of the recording of today's webinar, but also Cal's slide deck. So this way you'll have that as a frame of reference, and then also steps for following up if you should have any further questions that weren't answered today or things that you thought of maybe after our session today ends. So now I am going to turn it over to Cal.
Thank you, Lens. Lens, just because you're the only one I can see on this, make sure you let me know when there's 10 minutes left and 5 minutes left.
You got it.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it. I'm so happy that we can talk about this. Over the last year or so, I've been working with the DiJulius Group on helping brands create their signature experience. And it's something I'm really passionate about. And I think that it's something that is more apparent now more than ever. And we'll talk a little bit about why. But at the DiJulius Group, we talk a lot about what brands we can't live without and why. And so think about for a second what brands, are in your lives that you don't think you could, really quote unquote live without. We all want to be the brand that a customer can't live without. But what does that actually mean? So what are some of these brands? You can put them in the chat box if you'd like, but really the ones I hear most often are pretty much the same. We hear a lot about Apple, Amazon, Starbucks, and it's no surprise because all of these are revolutionaries in their industry. They've created a terrific quality and service that are, above their competition, and they have a signature experience. There's other places that sell laptops, and their product might be incredible. A lot of us have Macs. There's people who prefer PC, but they switch over to Mac because of the ease and simplicity of the experience of getting it fixed, of the things that, come along with having problems, the warranty, etc. Amazon, there were other places selling books prior to Amazon. Now, a lot of us couldn't imagine a life without it, but back when it, came about, there were plenty of other options to purchase books. Later became a larger marketplace. And then, Starbucks has, there's other coffee companies out there for oftentimes less expensive than the Starbucks drink. However, Starbucks does a great job of providing a signature experience. And we're going to talk a little bit about that today. So when we talk about creating a signature experience, we talk about a distinct customer experience that your customers can only get consistently from you. And we underline consistency consistently here because consistency is key. It has to be realistically achievable, manageable, and affordable to be consistently delivered. And we'll talk about that in a little bit when I touch on the customer experience cycle and how we can nail down these non-negotiable standards to make sure that our team is delivering on these each and every time consistently. But the second bullet point is really important because it has to be realistically achievable. We all can dream up of what we want our customer experience to look like, but sometimes it's, we're just not there yet. Either it's going to require a lot more training, it's going to require a tremendous amount of resources, it's not scalable. We don't know if these team members are going to be here in X amount of time. But that's okay, because some of our best clients and customers and companies that we can think of are doing things that are really little to no cost that just elevate that customer experience so that even if a competitor knocks you off, everyone knows where it came from. And what I mean by that is even if you're at another fast casual restaurant and they say "my pleasure," you probably know that originated at Chick-fil-A. And that didn't cost Chick-fil-A anything to come up with that. They just were really great at training their staff on how to deliver exceptional customer experiences each and every time. But it has to be able to be consistent, manageable, and realistic in order to be delivered each and every time. So I want you to ask yourselves, which of these is more important? Is it hiring or training? And so if you said hiring, you're not wrong. But if you said training, you're also not wrong. It's a little bit of both, but we think that training is the better answer. But this is a trick question because we know that both hiring and training are absolutely important. But we have to give the slight edge to just one answer, and we think that's training. And I'll tell you a little bit why. Walt Disney once said, we don't put our people in Disney, we put Disney in our people. What this means is people didn't wake up one day and say, I was born to serve Disney. There weren't 50,000 people, let alone 50 people in the world that woke up one day born to serve the Disney way. But what Disney was able to do was take their methodology and their teachings and their practices and put it in 50,000 people. And they're able to serve and deliver that experience that Disney, created, and it's so signature to them. Same thing with the Ritz-Carlton. Our ladies and gentlemen come from the exact same labor force, background, and quality of life as a competitor's labor pool. We're not paying a premium. We pay the same as others in our industry. It's really what we do when they join our family. We create guidelines for how our people are to perform. Exactly that. So oftentimes in our businesses, almost every business, our competition is probably paying similar. The benefits are probably the same, and we're recruiting from pretty much the same labor force. If you look at a Marriott Courtyard and a Ritz-Carlton, the front desk staff are probably the same age. Now, the general manager is a bit more sophisticated and has a career behind in hospitality management, et cetera. But the frontline employees that are there serving our customers every single day are from the same, people or from the same labor pool as our competition. So why are the Ritz-Carlton employees able to provide a remarkable customer experience while the people across the street at a lower end hotel aren't? Well, it's because the Ritz-Carlton has created these guidelines. They've nailed down the customer experience cycle that we're going to talk about, and their people are able to perform at a level that's different, and it makes them the best in the industry, and it makes them a premium for their people. So the signature experience consists of making the micro moments memorable, building relationships by making emotional connections, creating non-negotiable standards at every touch point, and removing employee roulette. So let's think about Nordstrom as an example. There are plenty of options. So what makes Nordstrom different? When we're looking, it's holiday shopping is coming up. When we're thinking about going to the mall or not going to the mall or shopping online, what makes people want to shop at Nordstrom? Why would we want to go to Nordstrom for that experience? So we're comparing Nordstrom to all of their competitors. They have, we have Bloomingdale's here, Saks Fifth Avenue, Neiman Marcus, Bergdorf Goodman. I included Dillard's and Macy's because Nordstrom is oftentimes in the middle there. They're not always selling as high end as Saks Fifth Avenue and not offering maybe as low end of things as Dillard's or Macy's, but they are considered competitors, and they certainly do consider these to be their competition. So what makes Nordstrom different than these other retailers? Well, is it the location or the number of stores and the availability to shop? Well, Nordstrom has stores in almost all 50 states. They have 41 states represented in the US. And I just pulled Dillard's, for example, and Dillard's has almost the same, if not more. If you included Macy's and Neiman's and all of the other stores in there, you definitely have plenty of other options. Now, is it the items that they sell? Again, the net, the average of what they sell is pretty much the same across the board. Is it the luxury or the price? Well, sometimes some competitors on here even charge less than Nordstrom does. So then the question still remains, what is it about Nordstrom that is so different and makes our customers or creates ravenous fans? Well, I did a little research on this, and one article that I found that was published by a shopper was called 11 Reasons Why I Shop at Nordstrom Over Everyone Else. And so the biggest reason that she suggested that she shopped at Nordstrom was because of the customer service that they were providing. And the second was that the individuals seem to take pride in what they do and the service that they offer. And another reason was that, sorry, my animations are a little messy here, that she also enjoys the consistency between stores. So I know that I had highlighted that earlier about consistency and how important it is, but the consistency between stores, they look the same, departments, are relatively the same. They often have the same offerings available. It doesn't matter if you're at your local store or across the country, the stores are very similar. So the enemy of great customer experience is inconsistency. And what I mean about that is, what I mean by that is, inconsistency in all of the interactions with our brand, whether that's on the phone, whether that's in person, whether that is digitally on X or Twitter, whatever we call it these days. And one of those things that really impacts our employee experience, or I'm sorry, our customer experience and our signature experience is employee roulette. So how much revenue or profit would your organization make if your customer experience was excellent, regardless of who your customers deal with? So really think about this. If you're the founder of your company, or if you're the manager of your department, or if you're the leader of your group, imagine if you had 12 of you, and how much revenue would your group do? How much profit would you guys make if the customer experience was only dependent on you, because you were able to answer all the calls, because you were trained, etc.? Probably great, right? Well, employee roulette is what we call the phenomena when the level of experience your clients receive is dependent on which employee they encounter. And we all have this happen for us. We all call United Airlines and cross our fingers that we get Nan and not Frank, who I had last week, who was not able to help me during my delay. And Nan was really extremely helpful. It doesn't mean that they aren't great people, or they weren't, wanting to help. They just weren't trained in the way to help. And their customer experience cycle and the customer journey wasn't nailed down into ways that they can all be trained on systemically across the organization. And so we want to avoid employee roulette, and one way we can do that is through the customer experience cycle, which is we refer to as a CEC. And so I'm going to break down the CEC, the customer experience cycle, through a hotel example, because a hotel is something that we can all kind of relate to. Getting into specific business models might be a little difficult, because many of us on here have different businesses that we're coming from and working with. But a hotel, I think it's safe to say that many of us are familiar or have stayed in a hotel in our lifetime. And so really the customer experience cycle is breaking down each touch point of the customer experience cycle of the given business. So if your group is a hotel, it's breaking down each interaction that our customer, the end user, has with our company. And so for a hotel, it's pretty basic. You have your reservation, you have valet or parking, depending on the type or class of service of hotel. You have your hotel check-in. Again, that may look different for different hotels. I know some properties are offering digital options, but still your customer has to check in some capacity. You have room service, but if you don't have room service or order room service, you have some sort of housekeeping or exposure where your room is dependent on the employee that made up the room. And lastly, you have checkout. Again, this is a very basic structure here, but it's a great way to look at the customer experience cycle in order to break down the customer journey and identify ways that we can maximize on these micro moments and create that signature experience. So it's important to note that regardless of where you're at, what hotel you're at, what business you're in, your competitor's customer experience cycle probably looks the same or similar when talking about a given industry. So the hotel check-in is something that we all have done before, whether we're staying at a Holiday Inn, a Marriott, or a Ritz-Carlton, or even a motel. But what occurs when you arrive at the hotel check-in can differentiate ourselves from the Ritz to the Marriott to the Holiday Inn or the motel. So we call these, the first things is of operational standards. Operational standards are the things that you have to do operationally to get the job done. So operationally, what are the things that you have to do in order to get the job done? In order to check in a customer, if we're looking at the check-in process, you have to first, the receptionist greets you. They ask for your name on the reservation. They ask to see your driver's license. They confirm your room rate and they ask for a credit card and they confirm your day of departure and they hand you your room keys. Operationally, we have to do those things in order to check a guest in, right? Whether you're at the Marriott or the Ritz-Carlton across the street. And these things happen every single time. It's only memorable when these things don't happen. And most companies, regardless of where you are, stop here. They do not focus on how to provide a better customer experience in this stage. And they're satisfied with this process as long as it goes as smoothly as possible, as long as Cal remembers to ask for the credit card, all is good to go. Again, it's only memorable when these things don't happen. We call these things operational standards. Now, on the diametric opposite, we have experiential standards. So if we are trying to make a simple, mundane transaction, one that is more personal and provides an experience for the customer, we can add these standards and change the interaction. So for the hotel example, you have the receptionist executes the 5 E's, which is eye contact, enthusiastic greeting, ear-to-ear smile, engages and educates. The 5 E's are a tool that we use to remind frontline employees to, use the 5 E's, use eye contact when talking to a customer, whether it's over the phone. You can tell when somebody's paying attention over the phone. Have an enthusiastic greeting. There's a difference between saying, hi, how are you? To, hey, welcome back. We're so happy to have you here. Ear-to-ear smile. Again, a smile can be heard on the phone. I think we can all agree after the pandemic that we can tell when somebody's digitally or virtually smiling. Being engaged. How long are you in town here at the, in Seattle? Educating guests on letting them know that, our property is just around the corner from 15 terrific restaurants. Let us know if you need any recommendations, things like that. Again, these are not things that we have to do in order to check the customer in. The customer will be checked in regardless of if we go out of our way to take the 2 seconds to do this. But it does differentiate us from our competition, because a lot of times our competition is not focusing on these mundane, simple transactions and providing an elevated experience. A second example would be asking how your trip is, your trip in from Seattle. Well, how did they know they were coming from Seattle? They just read the ID. If you remember, operationally, I had to ask for the customer's ID to check them in. Now, what I didn't have to do was read their ID and see that they were traveling in from Seattle. Now, if you're like me, my ID is Ohio, but I've been living in New York, but that still starts conversation, right? They're, oh, I've been in New York for X amount of time now, but I'm from Ohio. Oh, I have a relative from Ohio, etc. It's simple things like that build rapport. And lastly, asking simply, is there anything else we can do for you today? It's so simple, but it means a lot, especially in a hotel example or in a hospitality industry, like hotels or restaurants or fine dining, or even fast casual. It's simple, it doesn't cost anything, and we can add these standards and it will completely change the interaction. So let's take a look at some operational examples again. So it's the service portion of the interaction. Employees have to execute in order to complete the transaction. Your competitors do it, and it's only noticeable by the customer unless it's not done. So the customer has no idea that there was a mistake unless it doesn't happen. Now, the experiential standards, on the contrary, are things that we can add in that are the actions the team members take that they don't necessarily have to execute, but it's that wow moment, it's that micro moment that we talk about that really changes the experience. A micro moment for a Starbucks, or I'm sorry, a Nordstrom employee is bringing that bag from behind the counter and handing it directly to the customer. They could have just done it the way Dillard's does it, the way that Saks Fifth Avenue does it, but Nordstrom is known for that Nordstrom way of bringing the bag from around the desk, because it creates a 1-second interaction. Didn't cost them anything, didn't create any delays. It's a wow moment, and it's different than what their competitors do. And again, if somebody tries to rip you off for that, they'll know, the customer will know where it came from because it originated with you. So finding those wow moments and ways to differentiate yourselves, it's the reason that customers return, refer others, and become brand evangelists. And again, it's not delivered by the majority of our competitors. So when we focus on a certain portion of the customer experience cycle, you have the hotel check-in, you have the valet or parking, et cetera, and so on and so forth, all the way to checkout. It's a cycle because we hope they come back. But also we have a structure when we go through each phase, like we just did with hotel check-in, we have, our service defects, which is exactly as they sound. It's service defects are things that go wrong. They're defective in the service. We have our operational standards, like we just spoke about. We have experiential standards. And lastly, we have above and beyond. And above and beyond are things that we commonly think of when we think of customer service or great customer service. They upgraded my room, or they upgraded my seat on United Airlines, or they, at Disney, they pulled the kid from the line and gave him the room at the top of the Magic Kingdom Cinderella Castle. They're awesome things. They're the things that we love to do. They're the things that make our job so exciting, but they're not things that we can consistently do each and every time. So they belong in above and beyond, because operational and experiential, these become our non-negotiable service standards that happen every single time, regardless of the day of the week, the time, the person that's answering the phone. Our team members are trained on this, but the above and beyond opportunities live as, ways of goals for us. If there's an opportunity, if there's space available in the hotel and we see that it's somebody's anniversary, certainly we're upgrading them. We can't upgrade somebody every time they walk in the door. But those exciting things that we go through in our lives, that when we want to go above and beyond for people, those belong there, because they do make our employees extremely passionate about the service that they deliver. And having employees that are empowered to be able to go above and beyond is key. So let's look at the reservation stage. So we have the service defects, which would be when you're calling to make the reservation for the hotel, you're on hold, there are no rooms available, can't access rewards number, price, etc. Those are typical service defects. Oftentimes, they're not our fault, but they are our problem. And we can talk about in a later webinar things like service recovery, how to handle these things when they do occur. But today, we're going to focus on this. So we have operational standards. Again, we have the name, booking information, credit card, experiential standards, a smile, use the name 2 to 3 times. Again, so easy. Hello, Mr. DiJulius, welcome. We're so happy to have you here. Ask, is there anything else that I can do for you today? And above and beyond opportunities, upgrade room, update system to reflect, special information, very simple things like that. A lot of the experiential standards that we talk about are things that require no extra training. It just requires it to be explained during the training. So it's something that our team members or our competitors across the street aren't focusing on. But they're things that our employees probably weren't empowered to do at their previous job. And it's the reason that our signature experience may be not memorable to our customers. Or some places have signature experiences that are negative to our customers. If you think about the signature experience of Spirit Airlines, or just the airline industry as a whole, rarely do we have signature experiences that stand out. However, there are opportunities in those industries, especially we call them grudge buys, things that you don't want to purchase, but you have to. Historically, those customer experiences are pretty negative across the board. So even just adding a few things to really elevate the customer experience really does serve as a huge boost to our customer experience and that signature experience that we're trying to create. Signature experiences are really key in finding, ways to maximize on the micro moments of the experiential standards. So finding ways to take operational things that we do each and every time within our SOPs, et cetera, and, enhancing those so the job still gets done, but we can change the game on X, Y, and Z because we incorporated these experiential standards. They're easy, and they're easy to learn. So I wrote an article last week about SoulCycle. It's a fitness brand that I started riding, a spin class that I started riding when I started college like 7 years ago. And I was not an athlete. I did not enjoy working out. And I went to college and realized I should probably, incorporate fitness as I get older. And I found this boutique fitness studio called Soul Cycle at the time. And I ended up becoming this ravenous fan. And when I would call home and tell my family that I was, waking up at 6 a.m. to work out, they thought I was lying. They thought I was crazy. But the reason was because they created a culture of, yes, a hospitality champion culture where they really went above and beyond and created a community, and it shows. And I think that they've really mastered that signature experience, because there's plenty of other gyms, there's plenty of other places for us to work out, just like there's plenty of other stores to Nordstrom, there's plenty of other retailers to Amazon, but we choose to do business with certain places. And I found something from the founders of SoulCycle and their former CEO as well, talking about just how they really focused on this hospitality.
The thing that's really interesting about SoulCycle is that you don't have membership model. Have you ever thought about just throwing in the towel and making it easier on yourself by doing an annual membership? 10 years ago when the company started, there was no boutique fitness space. And so what we were asking consumers to do was to pay for something that they got for free at the gym. And from the beginning, what that's really done is underpinned our culture of hospitality. So it's our job to make sure that you have an exceptional experience every time you come into the studio. And we want you to tell your friends, and we want you to come back.
Your happiest customer is only happy as your happiest employee. But what's so interesting is, app community has become such a buzzword for everybody, and we're all thinking about how to build community. What are the tools for building community? It's pretty simple, right? Everybody wants to matter. Everybody wants to feel like somebody actually gives a shit about them, right? Yeah. So the truth is, at the end of the day, do we know somebody's name? Do we smile at them when they walk in the door? If it's if it's a digital experience, does your customer service line care about people? It's not that complicated. It's a human instinct. We all want to matter in the lives of the people that we love, that we, transact with. And I think we've gone so far away from sort of coming up with all these formulas and skill sets and whatever. And really, how do you treat somebody? It's a pretty simple human instinct. And I think that's really the main tool that we lose sight of. Just training people to care about other people. It's pretty basic human instinct.
Yeah, I think that Julie there, who was talking about how she built this company on a hospitality culture, a hospitable culture, I think that she hit the nail on the head there when she talks about how it's really not that complicated. It doesn't mean that it's, something that happens overnight, but it isn't that complicated, and it's a shame that more people aren't doing it, but it's the thing that can differentiate you from the people next door. And I do encourage all of us on here to really take a look at the customer experience cycle that we're providing to our customers or our end users, and find the ways to maximize those micro moments to create meaningful customer interactions that will have lasting impressions on people and create ravenous fans that will get you up at 6 a.m. on a spin bike when you had never really historically ever wanted to do that ever before. So lastly, I wanted to talk about if you're really looking to take your customer experience to the next level, I can't recommend enough we have a customer experience executive academy that is coming up in starting in January. So the 2024 session, it meets in Cleveland, Ohio for 3 days a quarter. And it's industry leaders from across all industries that come together and from various companies from around the world and meet quarterly for 1 year and really just delve into the DiJulius Group methodology, each and every one of our commandments, one being the customer experience cycle. But people just leave as having a depth of knowledge. It's actually the exact same training that our consultants go through, like myself, when we first start with the company. So companies, send people that they want to come back and really spearhead this type of initiative. Doesn't mean you have to be the leader of the customer service department or the, CXO. A lot of companies don't have that or don't know what that even looks like. but it's the person that really wants to spearhead this initiative in creating that signature experience and learn from the absolute best in the world. I'm not even just talking about our team, but the people that come to this, you learn just as much from the room as you do from the methodology itself. So I'm going to move over to some questions now. Does anyone have any questions to start?
I'll give everyone maybe a minute to see if they want to add any into the Q&A section. But I do have an initial one that came through. So Cal, if you can, how are non-negotiable standards different than a company's SOPs?
Oh, great question. So we get this all the time, but most companies have SOPs, whether they're great at customer experience or not. But those are things like our operational standards that are operationally necessary to be done, to be able to be trained on completing that task, completing that hotel check-in. But the experiential standards don't replace these SOPs. They are added in conjunction with. They're ways to enhance the things that we're already doing to elevate that customer experience.
Perfect. Okay, I don't see any additional questions, which is completely fine. So again, just to reiterate, if you do end up with any additional questions, I will be sending that follow-up email. You can reach out to myself or Claudia. Her information will be on the email as well. If you have any additional questions or would like to hear more about the services that the DiJulius Group offers, and especially our Customer Experience Executive Academy that Cal mentioned. And thank you all so much for joining us, and enjoy the rest of your day.